I again would like to welcome you all to this, the fifth class of the Transit Citizen Leadership Academy. The Academy is a partnership between the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership here at Lipscomb University and the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee, and we'll be talking about more of both of our roles in this process as we go forward. We'll also take some time a little later this afternoon to have more informal introduction of everybody as members of this class. You will get to know each other very, very well, which is a wonderful part of this academy. My name is Ed Cole, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee. And I have the honor of beginning our first time together by introducing to you a person that I would describe as a transit champion. Those of you that have followed Mayor Carl Dean in his leadership with Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County as our mayor, for those in Davidson County and those in the region that have watched, know clearly that he has not backed off on his message that our future will only be great if we embrace transit and new transit choices. He talks obviously persuasively about education, about economic development, about safety, all of the attributes that we all know are important to the quality of life for all citizens at all parts of our region. But we're here to focus on transit, and we're here to hear from a leader that has made that an important question. I think I would just say this to you, in many communities who have looked at transit either on an urban scale or a regional scale, and we're looking at both here, one of the battles early on in trying to rethink transit in a community not used to that has been to convince the political leadership that this is an issue that they should embrace. And I think here in Middle Tennessee, and certainly in metropolitan Nashville, Davidson County, it's just the opposite. Our elected officials, like Mayor Carl Dean, have embraced this issue and are calling us to task to provide support, to provide communication, to provide dialogue, to provide visioning of a future with transit in it that he and his colleagues in the Mayor's Caucus across all 10 counties of Middle Tennessee are saying we ought to be about. So it's so appropriate and such an honor to have Mayor Carl Dean here to open our academy. So with no further ado, Mayor Dean, we welcome you to the first class.
Well, thank you, Ed. I appreciate the kind words, and I want to first start out by welcoming everybody to the Transit Citizen Leadership Academy. This is a real impressive group, and Charles, Ed, Linda, Lydia all deserve a lot of credit for pulling such a great group together. And I think it's really one of the key things that we have in terms of a foundation of building support for transit in our entire region is to have this academy, and I applaud everyone for participating. What I thought I'd do is talk about where we are with transit right now in Nashville, and obviously the big issue is the AMP, and talk about that a little and then leave plenty of time for questions. And I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. You know, I've lived in Nashville. I moved here in 1978 to go to law school. Came here straight from New York City, where I rode a lot of transit. But I noticed almost immediately that people were discussing transit here. Going back from my very first arrival here, now over 30 years ago, people talked about transit and the need for the city to do something. And at various points along the way, transit has gotten more attention than in other periods. I felt when I was running for mayor in 2007, I thought transit was going to be an issue for the city going forward. And I knew I wanted to talk about it. I knew I wanted to work on it. And when you get into office, there are a lot of different things you got to work on. And you know, we had one big moment, obviously, was in 2008. Unrelated to my election, the country went into the deepest recession that it had ever been in since the Great Depression. And then you had the flood of 2010. We had a bunch of other projects we were working on, but we continued to think about and work on transit. During the first term, we worked on bus rapid transit for Gallatin Road, which has turned out to be a huge success. The difference between that BRT and the BRT that the AMP will be is that the BRT on Gallatin Road doesn't run in a dedicated lane. I mean, essentially what that does is if you go from Music City Central, the downtown bus terminal, out to Rivergate Mall, sort of the terminus of the Gallatin Road route, and you go on the local bus, you stop about 45 times to get out to Rivergate. What BRT does is it stops fewer times, like 14 times, and stops at sort of more modern stations with real-time arrivals of the bus available, more comfortable. And the bus itself is a double articulated bus, a bigger bus, hybrid generally. And it also has a light extender, which means that when it approaches a green light, the light will remain green until the bus goes through. And so I know people think you follow the bus in your car is the way you go. But the bus will actually get you to your destination, obviously much faster than the local bus will. And we saw a dramatic upturn in ridership as a result of putting the BRT on the Gallatin line. And then later we did it on the Murfreesboro Road, basically running from Hickory Hollow Mall, the crossings now, to downtown Nashville, with the same results, ridership going up. We looked to, we wanted to do something that would allow us to sort of maximize our efforts, and we looked to doing a dedicated lane, which is pure BRT. We visited cities which had BRT, whether it's Eugene, Oregon, or Cleveland, Ohio. There are many other cities worldwide that have done this, but where it runs in a dedicated lane, then you have a BRT system that is actually faster than the traffic. And so that's what we've proposed for West End. But there are a couple facets to transit policy right now in Middle Tennessee. One is regional, which probably has not gotten as much media attention, but has been something that we've worked on really fairly consistently for about 5 years now. During the, remember when they had the gas shortage that was sort of caused by pipeline problems and other things? It was sort of an artificial shortage for a while. Gas prices shot up, stations ran out of gas. When that occurred, some of the mayors, we got together, we just started discussing transit and about how we needed to work together on transit issues. Then there was sort of a big moment for me where I went out to Colorado, to Denver, as part of a chamber trip where we met with the mayor of Denver, who's now the governor, John Hickenlooper, and he talked about the mayor's caucus he formed there, where he invited all the mayors from the cities and counties surrounding Denver to come to Denver and form a caucus where they would meet regularly. So I did what any self-respecting politician would do. I stole the idea and came back here and worked on creating the mayor's caucus here. And we've done that, and the focus of that has really been on transit. And we have had very in-depth conversations. We, of course, are staffed by the MPO, the planning organization. We work with the RTA and other organizations. We have really done a lot of work on transit planning for different corridors, going to the north, going to the south. We've had in-depth discussions regarding the need for dedicated funding and what possible dedicated funding sources are there. So the regional transit piece is moving forward. It's moving forward slowly, but there's more activity going on in Middle Tennessee than any other part of the state. Now, I say that because I want you to put this in context with the AMP, because the AMP, I think, is all part of this. But I also want to stress this. This issue of transit, which you're going to learn so much about, I think is going to be a critical issue for this entire state going forward for the next 10, 15 years. You know, the state has never been really actively involved in transit solutions beyond building roads. And we're at a point now with the urbanization and growing successful cities in this state that we're going to need to think beyond that. And it's not just the successful cities, it's the entire regions that they're in will not work without transit alternatives. And to make that happen, to get a group of mayors from 10 counties, like in Middle Tennessee, to get together and to try to create a dedicated funding source is virtually impossible without the state. You can't do it without state legislative authorization, you can't do it without state leadership, and you can't do it without a statewide policy. And so this is going to be a huge issue going forward. And if you look at Middle Tennessee, which is our area, this is the economic engine for the state. This is the area where more jobs are being created, more people are moving to the state. Our population is growing more than any other part of the state. And so it's in everyone's interest that we remain economically viable. So you can take that into context and think about the population here. The population of Middle Tennessee is going to grow by about 1 million people between now and 2035, right? And that takes us back to Denver. The Nashville region will be the size, population-wise, of the Denver region in just 20 years. So if you're familiar with Denver, you know they have done a ton of things over the course of that whole region over the last 20 years to prepare for their population growth. They have light rail, they have BRT, they've invested a lot in regional transportation, they've invested a lot in transit within Denver itself. And so to me, that's the right response. You've got to prepare for what's coming. And what's coming here is at least 1 million more people. All right? The AMP fits into this in that it runs on the major corridor of our county. It's the most dense corridor. It is the corridor with the most businesses. Essentially, it runs for 7.1 miles. It would run from 5 points in east Nashville, which to those of you who haven't been there yet, that's kind of the hip area, the restaurants, real trendy, lots of density in terms of housing, lots of attractions there in terms of entertainment and nightlife. Runs to downtown Nashville, up Broadway, and out West End to White Bridge Road. And what you're dealing with there, who you're serving on that area, is you're serving some universities, you are serving obviously the downtown area and the offices there, Midtown, which is a booming area. You're serving the hospitals, Baptist, St. Thomas, Vanderbilt are all on there too. And you're serving the tourists, which we get about 11 million a year. And I think it would be in our interest to get them all about the city spending money is sort of my vision of this. And what you end up with is this form of transit where it is running on a dedicated lane. The stops are either in the, are much more sophisticated than anything we have right now. You would pay for or get your ticket, use your card or whatever you have to get your ticket before you enter the waiting area, the stop area. So that when the bus pulls up, and the bus is not like a regular bus, the Gallatin Road Murfreesboro ones are regular buses. These buses would pull up even to the station floor. The middle of the bus opens up. It's not like you go in the bus, like the bus I rode this morning, the door by the driver opens and you walk up a couple steps. The whole middle of the bus opens up. And so everybody gets off fast, everybody gets on fast. And that's where the delays on buses occur. It's boarding, it's people paying and all that. That all happens seamlessly, and then off it goes in a dedicated lane with light extenders, and it will run faster than traffic. All right? The issue that comes up is two things. Is it going to result in more traffic on West End? All right. The way I answer that is there's going to be more traffic on West End no matter what happens. I mean, people say that there's really no conservative status quo position on this issue that I can see. If you say, I'm for the status quo, and I don't want things to change because it's so good, then that means you're going to have the congestion you have now. And if you've ever driven to White Bridge Road from downtown at 4 o'clock or 4:30, you know it doesn't work. But you also know 1 million people are coming. You also know the city with all these apartments, all these condominiums, all this growth, the traffic's going to get worse and worse and worse. So that's what happens if we do nothing. If you build the AMP, you're going to have traffic. You're going to have more people. But the AMP will take cars off the road. It will incentivize people to take a different form of transit. And it works. And that will allow, the commute by car will go down marginally. The commute by the AMP will be about 16 minutes and will remain that way because it's in a dedicated lane. So that will be, I think, a real plus for the city. So where it stands right now is we have our application into the federal government. We're waiting to hear about federal funding. I think we have a strong case for it, and we'll see what happens. The way I look at this is you can look at the federal funding that's occurred just in the last couple of years, even since the recession, and you look at cities that have received literally tens of millions of dollars. Cities like Grand Rapids, Michigan, St. Paul, Minneapolis. I mean, I'm not talking just about the cities much bigger than us that have also received tens of millions of dollars. Cities that are smaller than us are building transit systems, preparing for the future. You look at our direct competitors. The two cities I think we compete with most directly are Charlotte and Austin. Both of them have spent and received millions of dollars on transit, and they're a decade ahead of us when it comes to transit, a whole decade minimum ahead of us when it comes to transit. All right, that's who we compete with every day for smart young people. That's who we compete with for businesses every day, and we're losing there. All right. Then the other question I get from folks is, who's going to ride it? Well, people going to ride it are the people probably who are riding the bus right now. Remember, there are buses on West End right now, so this isn't a revolutionary idea that all of a sudden there's going to be new people riding buses. People are on buses every day on West End. Our bus ridership in Nashville hit a record this year, about 10 million rides. The demand is there. But when I ride the bus, and I try to do it 2 or 3 times a week, when I get on the bus, I get on at Hillsborough Road, up by the Boy Scouts at Woodmont. And when I get on, people are already on the bus. There's a couple folks already on it. They start at the mall. And they're like me, a little younger than me. Everybody's younger than me now on the bus. But they're going to work. They're like me. They're going to work. They're going downtown, or they're going to Vanderbilt to work. And then as we proceed down Hillsborough Road, we pick up increasingly younger people. Some are students, some are in their 20s and 30s going to work or going to the university. That continues all the way through Hillsborough Village. More and more young people get on the bus. Then something interesting happens when you get to Vanderbilt. The first stop around Vanderbilt is the medical center. And a whole bunch of people get off who are going to work or going there to study. And a whole bunch of people get on. And I usually take the bus 7:20 or 7:40. And these are people who have worked all night at Vanderbilt Hospital, cleaning, cooking, making the hospital run, who their ability to get to work depends on transit. They don't have cars, or if they have cars, they can't afford the parking. Vanderbilt doesn't have all the parking they need. They're saving money, but that's how they live. That's how the city works. And it's something you got to see. And it happens all around the city, all different places. People need it to get to work. And then we go downtown, and everybody gets off. But you also see a lot of older people, and that's going to be part of the ridership in the future. As people age, and people are going to choose to ride the bus more. You want them to have the freedom to get around the city. We see the huge trend of young people in their 20s in particular, who just aren't buying cars, aren't getting driver's license as fast as they used to, who are picking to live in an urban area because of the density and because transit should be and will be in any reasonable city an alternative. And then you don't talk about it as much as we should, but I'll talk about it because I think it's really important as a value for our city. When you're on a bus, you're going to see people with seeing eye dogs, you're going to see people with canes, you're going to see people in wheelchairs, you're going to see people with all different sorts of disabilities that don't allow them to drive. And the only way that they have the quality of life that I believe that they deserve and our city should offer, and the freedom that they need to have a dignified life, is through mass transit. And that's an important group. And then we're going to see more and more, I think, tourists. As I say, we are doing very well in the tourism industry. People come from all over the world to Nashville. And like most folks, like y'all, when you go to a city, you don't want to drive your car. And when you fly in, you probably prefer not to rent a car. You want to get to your hotel, get to where you're staying, and enjoy the place. And I think that's a huge growth area for us. So to me, it's a big issue. Ed mentioned, this is one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about. It's not an easy issue. And people say, do you get discouraged? No, I don't get discouraged at all, because this is one of these things that we just have to do. I mean, it is the right thing to do for our city. It's the right thing to do for our region. If we don't do it 20 years from now, our grandkids are going to be looking at us and saying, what were you thinking? Where were you? And we got to get it right. And the benefits of getting it right now are so much greater than us putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And we're at a point now where the growth is happening so fast we can't put it off. So it's a good fight to be in. It's the right fight. And it's one where I think you can see the coalitions and the growth of support right there. You poll it, 70% of the people in Nashville, whether it's the Rockefeller Foundation doing the poll, the Green Hills News doing the poll, whoever doing the poll, the support is broad and deep for mass transit. People are waiting for it, they're impatient for it, and they get it, that we need it. And so I compliment you all on your interest in the subject, and I'd be happy if we have some time to answer any easy questions. Mike?
Federal funding, does the Nashville go directly to the federal government, or do they have to go through the state to obtain that money?
We actually applied directly to the federal government. So we've been dealing with the FTA, the Federal Transit Administrator, which is part of the Department of Transit, and we make our application there. And so the funding mechanism for this is you've got the federal government, which we're looking to for about $70 million. And that's a significant amount of money. But again, if you compare it to other regions, other cities, we're really behind in pursuing this money, and somebody else is going to get it if we don't. And I think our argument's strong. We'll be asking or hoping the state will contribute, but that will be down the road. I don't see any requests going to the state anytime during this calendar year, and we can move on without their support right now, and we'll just see where that goes. And then the city's got to step up. The council has been supportive. Council voted, I don't know, 30 votes to something back about 6 or 7 months ago for $7 or $8 million to keep the process moving. But that's the funding mechanism. We have to get the federal money to make it work. The city can't do it alone. So the federal money decision is a big one. Yes?
When you visited Denver, what was the unique mindset there that made this successful versus any other municipalities that are similar size or larger? The hurdle that we've got here.
Ed may be able to answer this better, but my sense of it is that they were relentless, and they got defeated initially on a referendum, and they just kept going, and they finally got it done. There's a couple of issues that I'm interested in that people get worked up about. This is kind of one of them. And one of the things in Nashville is such a great city to live in, and it's a great place to be involved in public service because people here are pretty reasonable. I mean, we like to get along. I mean, that's sort of the ethos we have here, that we want to get along, we want to be happy, we want to find agreement. So when you have something where people disagree a little bit, and you get it mainly in sort of land use type issues, people get nervous. But you know, you can look around the country at every transit proposal that's ever been made, every bit of progress that's ever been made, and there is always disagreement. Because it is change, it is altering the status quo, it is saying we're going to do something progressive not in a political sense, but in the sense of taking responsibility for our own futures. And it's going to cost some money, and it's not going to make everybody happy when you first propose it. And so you're going to get this debate, and I think you should just welcome it and say, fine. I mean, I feel so strongly about it that it's the right thing to do, that I feel very comfortable with the debate. And I think one of the great things that encourages me is that, again, if you look at what most citizens believe, everybody kind of gets that transit is a big issue for our region. It is an enormous issue for our region, and if we don't address it, we got a problem. And you can't dig a hole and hide from it. Yes?
Cities like New Orleans, St. Louis, like you mentioned, Charlotte, are now reestablishing their light rail or streetcar type transit. Is that something that's being considered in Nashville as well?
we looked at, for this particular project, I mean, and light rail is out there as a possibility for the regional transit solutions. I mean, but again, the regional transit solution ultimately is going to be dependent on the ability of the region, with the state's help, to agree on a dedicated funding source. Ultimately, I think for us to do everything we want to do in Nashville, we're going to need to find a dedicated funding source. Do we need to find a dedicated funding source right now? No. The city can clearly afford this project. I mean, we can handle it. We looked at light rail for the AMP area, and we looked at light rail for a variety of different things, but the attraction of BRT is a couple things. One, it gives you a lot more flexibility. You don't have to put rail in the ground. You don't have to put wires up above for trolleys. It lets you do, if you have to work in the right-of-way, you can move the bus around the right-of-way. It gives you maximum flexibility. And that's why it's such a popular form of transit right now. And the buses get better and better and better. And I envision in 5-10 years from now that most of the buses you would have on the AMP line would be electric buses. I mean, and if you've ever ridden on one of those, you see how quiet those are. That's an amazing thing. But the other thing, the clincher that really decides BRT over light rail for the AMP project is about $100 million. That's how much more it is. So when you get right down to it, it's $100 million more, and that's not money that is generally available. But BRT is if you really wanted to see it, the best place I know to go is Cleveland. You know, Cleveland is not a city that is very similar to Nashville in a lot of different ways. And I don't say that in disrespect. I mean, I would love to have an American League, Major League team. I'm not planning anything. I'm not planning anything. But they built this line, the Euclid line, that runs from downtown Cleveland to the Cleveland Clinic. And it's really well done. You feel like you're on light rail, the same sort of stations we're talking about, and it works. And it's resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars of development along the line. We're running ours on a line, I would just say Nashville is clearly a much stronger economic city than Cleveland, and West End is one of the strongest economic streets probably in the Southeast. Our chances of guaranteed success in West End, I think, are much stronger than any line, any route I can think of that anyone's proposed. I mean, I have no doubt it will work there. No doubt at all. Yes, sir.
From economic development standpoint, you mentioned Charlotte and Austin being our two biggest competitors.
Right.
Is transit a game changer, or is it a tiebreaker for companies looking at it?
You know, it's hard to say. I can say this, that when we've talked to a lot of companies we've talked to, when they're looking in the core city and they want to be in Nashville, transit is a big consideration. Because particularly the companies that are looking for younger employees, they want transit in terms of reducing the costs, reducing the dependency on parking, and they want the employees who are attracted to the density of a city and the interest of a city, and they expect transit. You know, other things that the appeal of the city, the quality of life, when we were looking at Charlotte and Austin versus Nashville, is something I think about a lot, and that's a major consideration. But something I think you all should think about as regional leaders is goods and services and people have got to be able to move relatively freely between Hendersonville and Nashville, and from Clarksville to Nashville, and from Franklin to Nashville, and all over. And when we get the gridlock that we're getting on the interstate, that's going to hurt us. And I think, you know, in Charlotte and Austin are still dealing with those same issues, but we got to deal with them too, and that's where the regional issue comes in. But the AMP fits into it because any regional solution brings people into Nashville. And when you get to Nashville, you got to have a good transit system to get out into the city, to get to Vanderbilt, to get to St. Thomas, to get to Caterpillar, to get to HCA, to get the tourists to East Nashville. And so it's a start. It's a start. And I want to stress this, it's not a one-off. You do the AMP, then you do BRT like we've done on Gallatin Road on Charlotte, which is booming. And then you do BRT on Nolensville Road. And then we work as a region and as a state to find answers where we can have some sort of transit between us going north and us going south and us going east and us going west. This is going to be an issue that's going to dominate, I think, politics and political discussion. Dominate may be too strong a word. It's going to be in the top 3 or 4 issues for the next 15, 20 years. Just ride on the interstates at 4:30. I mean, you can see what I mean. Anything else? There's no baseball questions? Kind of answered that one. Any? All right, well, thank you.
Well, we've just had the course. Mayor Dean has covered the whole breadth of the discussion that we're about to have, ranging from political will to the kind of technology to the importance of being ahead rather than behind as we face the future, the region as important as Nashville and how the two are related. These are all themes that we are going to be addressing. So I am just absolutely grateful to the mayor for his leadership and for the mayor and his willingness to be here and be with us here tonight. And I think one thing that Lydia will point out a little bit later that we'll know, all of the material, including what the mayor just said, will be available to us online. I would suggest what we've just heard is probably one of the best nuggets of a leadership call for transit that we could hear. And as the mayor put this is not said in a political sense in terms of partisan politics. It is a political statement in terms of people coming together to accomplish the common good. We are now going to have another treat. You've been seeing a person on the screen, probably wondering who that is. We are absolutely privileged today to have with us Michael Milanofi. Michael is online. I'm using old terms here, Michael, but online, I don't know, it's real time, from Washington, D.C. And I can't say enough thanks to Paul Ballard, who you will get to meet our next session. Paul is the CEO of MTA and RTA and is a leader in transit across the country. And Paul worked with us to ask Michael to be a part of the discussion tonight. Michael is the CEO and Chief Executive Officer and President of the American Public Transit Association. It's commonly known in the business as APTA, but without spending a whole lot of time, APTA is the single largest, most significant national leader in transit policy and administration in the United States. APTA has the traditional roles that you could imagine of being, first of all, a professional organization for people who are professionals in the business, and you'll be meeting more as we go through this, and certainly we will next week as well. APTA also, and I hope in our discussion with Michael we can get into this, Michael also leads an organization that's right at the forefront of our national political discussion about transit in our future. The kind of program, for example, that the MTA has requested funding for, the Small Starts program from the FTA that Mayor Dean mentioned, that's a program that's in place and is very carefully watched through the actions of Congress and the executive branch of government by APTA, by Michael and his organization. So to have him with us real time is an incredible honor. I could read Michael's background. Let me just say to you, and looking at Michael's, and you've got his biography to look at, but he has a history in the business of building transit vehicles. When he was in college, drove a bus, has been actively involved in managing large transit operations across the country, and now has moved into this leadership role with the American Public Transit Association, with APTA. So it's a privilege to have Michael with us. Michael, I think you can see us. Good. Okay. Well, good. Before you is the Transit Citizen Leadership Academy class in the first session of our 5th group. When this class graduates, they will then join about now 125 alumni in all 10 counties of Middle Tennessee to carry forward the leadership role in their communities and across the region in moving the transit discussion forward. As you well know, Nashville is and Middle Tennessee is in that part of the country that has historically been focused more on cars than on public transportation. But that's changing, as Mayor Dean just pointed out and as we all know. So having this academy and having these people willing to spend this time to learn and become involved in this process is a pretty significant thing for us, and we are pleased that you've honored us with your presence. So the format will be, Michael's going to speak with us for a little bit, and then we'll have a good opportunity for question and answer from back and forth between us and Michael in Washington. So assuming you're good to go, Michael, we're good to go. Great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be with you all this evening. And you're a good-looking group. I got to tell you, look great on the camera there. I was thrilled to hear Mayor Dean. It's the second time that I've had to follow him, and I should have learned from the first time that he gives most of my speech for me, which makes my speechwriters crazy. So I appreciate it. What a great advocate you have in your community, and what a great leader across the nation as well, to carry that transit message. And you can see he rides every day, he gets it, he understands it, he can speak to it from a first-person perspective, and what a great honor to have him start the class out that way. I have the privilege of doing these types of things all across the nation, and there are few mayors that are as conversant in their transit system as Mayor Dean is, and what a privilege to have him as a spokesperson and part of this program. And I want to say thank you to all of you. You're taking time out of your lives, and I know you're all very, very busy business people that have 30 leaders from across 10 different cities here for this program. Fantastic. So I'm thrilled. Thank you, Ed. Thank you to the mayor. Thank you to my friend Paul Ballard. And as Ed said, I started in my life driving a bus. I was the team driver for Bobby Knight and the Hoosier basketball team, and that stress is enough to prepare me for Congress. That was easy after that. But Paul Ballard also drove for the same agency, and so we have a lot of that that common bond. So what I want to do today is take a few minutes. I'll do about 10 minutes of just scoping for you what the industry is, and from there we'll go to a Q&A session, and I look forward to a really vibrant Q&A session. I trust you'll all be taking notes because there will be a quiz at the end of my session. So let's talk a little bit about public transportation and the value that it brings to your community, whether you ride it or not. And that's a really important point as we move forward in this discussion. Let's give a little background on what APTA is. The American Public Transportation Association, or APTA, has roots that go back to 1882, back when it was horse-drawn passenger railway carriages. And interestingly, emissions were a problem then as they are now. It's a little different. Certainly we have been around for 130-something years, and so we've got a little bit of perspective on transit. 95% of all people who ride public transportation in the U.S. and Canada ride on an APTA member system. So we touch systems big and small all across the nation. It's certainly come a long way since 1882, and currently we've got about 1,500 members across the U.S. and Canada that we represent. And we represent the public sector, the transit agencies, we represent the private sector, with the suppliers of buses and rail cars and contractors and architects and all those. And we also do the universities, the DOTs, and others. And so the whole broad spectrum of public transportation are all of our members. And so we were able to bring those different perspectives to the association and to our discussion here tonight. And we're located in Washington, D.C., about 2 blocks from the White House. So we're able to spend our time working with Congress and the administration and sharing and carrying your message to those that lead us at the federal level. And we're a voice both nationally and internationally. We represent the United States around the world, and that's a privilege that I get to have to speak on behalf of the industry throughout the world and to share both the lessons that we have and to bring that information back for best practices around the U.S. and Canada. So a resource for industry information, and let me just touch on a few of the things that we cover in the APTA portfolio. We're certainly an advocate for public transportation and lobbyists, and I've got a lobbyist division. That's all they do, about 10 people that just work on the Hill doing federal lobbying for investment in federal dollars in our industry and infrastructure. We're also a standards development organization. We set the standards for the public transportation industry. We do safety and security work, and we're a contractor with the TSA with regards to federal transit and safety in that industry. We are a resource for technical issues and for training and workforce development and people development in our industry, because although we've got lots of great infrastructure, beautiful things, and rolling stock, it's not healthy without the people, and certainly that's a key part of what we do in the industry. But we're also the keeper of all statistics and surveys in the industry. So if you want data, we've got a fact book that is published online. It's also available in hard copy that gives you all kinds of quick reference data for what the industry is and how we fit into the big national picture. So that's APTA in a nutshell. So let's take a look at the state of the industry right now, and I have to tell you, it is very bright. Let's talk about first, you heard the mayor talk about support and ballot initiatives around the country. This past year, 2013, was an off-election year, yet there were 15 ballot initiatives for transit initiatives across the country in 8 different states. And of those 15 ballot initiatives, 11 of them passed this past year. That's a 73% passage rate. Now look back the year before, in 2012, the presidential election year, there were 62 local transit ballot initiatives in the country, and 49 of those passed, a 79% passage rate. In a time when we hear people say the economy's too tough, we're still recovering, we can't pass taxes, more than 70% of the time, when people were asked, would you support an investment of your local dollars in public transportation, people said yes. We've been tracking these statistics since 2000, and the passage rate for local ballot transit initiatives for taxes for transit is actually scoring higher than school bond initiatives. This is happening because people in communities trust their transit leaders. They understand the value that a person in communities, whether they ride or not, and that's part of what we're here to talk about tonight. And as you go through this class, it's something for you to learn on as well. Now, ridership is telling a very similar story. Ridership has been up in 9 of the last 11 quarters. In 2012, the last full reporting year, we carried 10.5 billion trips in public transportation. That's 16 times more than people were carried on domestic airline trips. About 700 million domestic airline trips a year, 10.5 billion trips on public transportation. So our 9th year, over 10 billion in ridership. And as we look at the 3rd quarter, last full reporting quarter we have data for, ridership is up 1.5%. That's an additional 39 million trips in public transportation. Now certainly some of that is driven by volatility in fuel prices, but what we're seeing is when people come to transit, they stay. And we're going to talk about some of the differences in demographics, and Mayor Dean talked about some of that. We're going to expand on that a little bit more to give you some information on it. Now, when we look about the different modes in transportation, there's bus and rail and heavy rail and waterborne transit and others. About 53% of the people ride on bus, and certainly you've got a very robust bus system there in Middle Tennessee. And so let's talk a bit about that. When it comes to the bus industry, we're leading the way in alternative fuels. When you look at alternative fuel cars, there's about 3% of the automobile population in the country. In the bus world, in the public transit world, 35% of our buses are hybrid or alternative fuels. We are leading the way in the country when it comes to alternative fuel technology and doing our part to serve the environment. And we know that you've got some commuter rail there, and you've got great bus service, and you're looking at the BRT system at the AMP that the mayor did such a phenomenal job of explaining about that service. And I was there over the summer, and Paul Ballard and I went and drove that whole corridor, and he showed me all of the robust businesses and residential and other things going along the AMP corridor, and of course the beautiful new convention center. Really enjoyed my time down there. You've got a great corridor, you've got a strong project, and we're very supportive of the work on AMP and growing the transit system. Even as you look at growing the rail system out to Clarksville and other places, that commuter rail bus, great combination you've got there. Now I won't go into detail on what the mayor, or about BRT, because the mayor did that job for me, helped explain that. It's something that we saw in other countries. We talk about the international role of that. Other countries had done that, whether it was Curitiba, Brazil, or Leeds in London. We saw these dedicated BRT systems and how cost-effective and flexible they were. Now the federal government has seen that, has embraced it, and is supporting that with dollars and projects and support. And the AMP project is doing a great job as it moves forward to being a real project that's going to get in the ground soon and be serving the community there in Middle Tennessee. And as the mayor touched on, there's great examples of BRT already going on, whether it's in Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, Miami, Boston, Eugene, Oregon, Los Angeles, and Cleveland. You can see there's cities large and small all across the country, and it's a really, really good story. See, it was ironic the mayor talked a lot about Charlotte, and 15 years ago I was the general manager of Charlotte Transit. I was there when we passed the transit tax with Mayor McCrory, and to see how that community has transformed from a smaller town to a big, vibrant city that is leading in many ways community development is a great story of revitalization to see that work and see that transformation is a tremendous story. And it tells the story of having a dedicated funding and what it can do for your community. And we put a dedicated busway in there. In fact, I drove the opening of that, and it was exciting to see how that transformed how people moved about the community. We see that happening with the AMP and there in Nashville. As the mayor said, there's always going to be challenges and critics as you put new structures and programs into place, but I applaud you all being strong and helping to tell that story and helping to tell it from a business perspective, so very, very important. As we look at the changes in how people are riding, transit is taking people of all different demographic groups all across the country. And one of the groups we're seeing that's really transforming how people use transportation are the millennials, the 18 to 34-year-olds. Many of us have kids that are in that generation, and as we know, they like to ride because they can ride and text rather than trying to drive and text, which of course we don't want them to do. But they're more about getting together, using their devices and using social media. And they don't want to have cars. They don't want to have driver's license, even some of them. When I turned 16, I was at that DMV the first day. I couldn't wait to get my license. And many of you were in that same place. And now with the statistics and age for age, you look at 30 years ago versus now, 20 percentage points less of the millennials are saying they want to get their driver's licenses. They're waiting or sometimes saying, I don't want to get a license at all. They want public transportation as an option. And even if they do drive, they may only use it once or twice a week or use it for part of a trip. They're all about having choices, and that's where it really comes into play, is providing those transportation choices. And our transit systems are embracing it. They've got the apps for different systems. I was in San Francisco last week, and I rode the BART system, and I used the app there to learn how to ride the system. And it gave me great freedom, and it gave me confidence because it demystified that ridership experience. And we're seeing that in transit systems around the country, and they're putting Wi-Fi on their buses and other technologies to make it very, very user-friendly. And you think about the old days when you had to look at a bus schedule and figure out where is it coming and when is it on time. Well, now you can have apps that tell you the bus is 3 minutes away, or it's 12 minutes away. You know you have time to grab coffee or hit the restroom, whatever you have to do. That information makes it easier to ride, and it makes it a better experience for everybody. And it's opening up for people all across the country, whether they're young or old. People are having greater access to transit. And so we look at both ends of the geological spectrum. We've got the millennials on the one end, we've got the baby boomers, 80 million strong that are riding transit. I see many of you in the audience fall in the baby boomer category. They're saying we want to move and live and buy in communities where we can have access to public transportation, where we can leave our car, we can walk to the store, to the community, to get coffee, to the theater, to mingle and interact with our friends, and have to use the automobile less. They're changing, our communities are being built, and we're seeing that repopulation of our downtown, our business districts. As we look across the country, we're seeing that's a key point. You heard the mayor touch on it. As we talk to mayors and governors across the nation, they tell us that in the top 5 things that people ask about now when they look at bringing their businesses into communities, they talk about transportation. And that's not just getting people to their business, it's getting employees to their businesses in a safe, reliable, dependable way. So they can't get to work, can't do the work. And so we're seeing this tremendous focus. It used to always be about, tell me about your water, sewer, power. Now they want to hear about good public transportation and transportation options. When you think about our economy is changing from a manufacturing economy to a knowledge economy, those skill sets are very, very portable. They can be in your community today, and they can be in another country next month. And so those cities that are more competitive and those countries that are more competitive are going to lead the way, and it is a key component. And we're seeing that cities that invest in public transportation are stronger and more vibrant. As we're going through this economic challenge since 2008, those cities have proven to be more economically viable and have a better rebound. We're going to talk about that some more in a few minutes. As we look at the investment in public transportation, it gives us freedom, it gives us mobility, and it makes financial sense. For every dollar that you invest in public transportation, you get a 4 times multiplier, a $4 economic benefit back in your community. In fact, a lot of people don't know, we talk about the investment of federal dollars in the public transportation system. Most of the federal dollars that come into transit go to capital items. The federal government, they don't build buses and trains, they don't build bus shelters and transit garages. The private sector does that. So fully 72% of all the federal dollars that flow into the transit systems flow right through to the private sector. Those are dollars that are spent all across the country. So the buses that come into your community, they're being built in small towns and communities across the nation. They're providing good access to jobs and good health care and good technology. We talked about those alternative fuel and hybrid buses. They're being built in small and at-risk communities, and the supply base that supplies those is all across the nation. So that multiplier is very, very real. When we talk about congestion costs us another $21 billion in added cost if we didn't have transit, according to the Texas Transportation Institute. They study these things every year. They look at congestion across the nation. If there was no transit, $21 billion more in congestion would occur in this country. And speaking of good transit access, you heard the mayor, he couldn't have said it better. It's like he was reading my speech. If we want to improve the flow of goods, commerce, and people through our communities, we have to free up that roadway network. We're talking about 100 million more people by 2030 in this nation, and fully 1 million more people in the next 2 decades in the greater Nashville and Middle Tennessee area. We're not going to double deck our roadways and highways. We've got to find ways to move those people more efficiently and effectively. By giving them a good public transportation option, freeing up those lane miles to move goods, commerce, and services through your communities, a much more efficient utilization of our always scarce resources. And we talked about the impact of economic vitality and being able to rebound in our communities, especially since the economic downturn in 2008. And so the American Association of, the National Association of Realtors commissioned a study in conjunction with APTA, and they looked at residential home values in 5 communities since 2008, since the economic downturn. And what they found was really stunning. Those residential properties that were located along high-frequency transit corridors performed 42% better than those that didn't have close access to high-frequency public transportation. What that means is that their values didn't drop nearly as far as those that didn't have good transit access, and they came back much more quickly. Those home values were equal to having oceanfront property. And if you had oceanfront property and transit, boom, you were off the charts. But it was a tremendous telling thing. It was, families were able to leave cars at home, able to have greater access to jobs. Having good access to public transportation significantly improved the value of the housing stock in that community. 42% better. National Association of Realtors, big, real report. We're happy to share that with you if you want to see that data. Talk about another study that's really important. We just this past summer jointly worked with the U.S. Travel Association, representing the whole travel industry across the nation. And they commissioned a special study. They did a conference all about transportation here in Washington, D.C. at the museum. I had the privilege of speaking at that on a study that we had worked together on that just was published a few months ago. And what we found was that those cities that have a direct rail connection between their airport and their downtown CBD saw much higher occupancy rates and room revenue rates in their hotels and businesses as a result. In fact, they had 11% higher revenues in their hotels than cities that didn't have that rail downtown connection. So they had more people, and they had higher rates, and those restaurants and other businesses that were around in that, what we call the transit shed area, also benefited from that. Direct connections and bringing those tourists in. Tourists have become very used to riding public transportation, and when they come in, often they ask the airport, where can I catch the bus or the train in downtown, because they don't want to rent the car. The rental cars are cool too, it's all good, I'm sure some rental car people in the room, but it's good to have those options to give people a choice. And we talk about that investment in public transportation. Here's another interesting stat. For every $1 billion that's invested in public transportation, that supports 36,000 people that are creating and sustaining their jobs. We have a significant role to play in the industry. And by investing $79 billion in more productive transportation systems, like public transportation, between now and 2030, we will save $218 billion in energy costs. Our energy systems are strained. We must be more efficient. We must be more productive in our energy transportation systems. And transportation is fully 30% of the energy sector. It is the biggest single mover in the energy sector. So if we can improve that by investing in good public transportation, we put less strain in our energy systems, and we can have a more efficient and effective economy for our communities. Now, where communities are growing, APTA and our members are leading the way. Consider this, that households that are near public transportation, they save an average of 4,400 fewer miles that they drive because they're able to have good access to public transportation. That's a huge number. And it plays out to about $10,000 a year they can save. That's $10,000 a year they can save and spend in your businesses, in your communities. Those are real cash dollars. Public transportation makes a big difference. And so what does that mean across the nation? A much higher demand for public transportation. We're seeing it all across the nation, cities big and small. We're seeing big ridership increases. We're seeing it in small towns and big. It's not just along the coasts anymore. It's in the middle, in the Midwest. It's in cities under 100,000. We're seeing big shifts. Now people look at moving about their communities. And as we look ahead into what's happening, you guys are doing great stuff in Middle Tennessee. You have a great leadership role, and I think you're going to continue to do that. And this investment you're doing in this classes makes a big difference. But the next step that's really, really important is we have to continue to educate our elected officials, and particularly those members of Congress. So whether you're in Washington, D.C. and you're visiting your members in their offices, or when they come back into their districts and you meet with them, help tell the story. This is so important. Help them to understand that this is where your federal dollars go. Point to that bus, point to that shelter, point to that garage, and say, these are your federal dollars at work. Help them to tell the story. Help them to understand why they have to care. This is a formalized program now. We don't have earmarks anymore. The dollars will flow through whether they're engaged or not, but if we want those dollars to flow through, if we want them there to help build our communities, to invest in our BRT systems, to build our systems out and build more commuter rail, we have to have that federal investment. And if they don't hear from you, if they don't hear from anybody, I don't know why it matters. If they hear from you, and you all know that if they hear from 3 people, it's a lot. If they hear from 5, it's an avalanche of hearing from people. It is critical that they hear from you and tell that local story, that your voice be heard. And that's why I celebrate what it is you're doing there. So thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I guide you to look at our website, apta.com, apta.com. Not apta.org, those are the physical therapy people, great people, but not the transit people. So apta.com, it's a great resource for us, all the information you can use. And I welcome now the opportunity to open the floor to questions, and I'd love to hear from you and see what I can do to help. Ed, take us away. I think Ed's going to hear your questions and relay them so that I can be sure that I hear them, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. First of all, Michael, thank you very much. Really helpful. Okay, we've got time for some questions. This is an opportunity to really talk to someone, as you can tell, who's at the source of the conversation across the nation about public transportation. We have a question that you would like. I'll start, Michael. You probably are expecting this question. Given the tone of discussions in Congress, how does the public transportation conversation fit in with the discussions about federal policy and the federal budget and all that we're hearing about across the nation from Congress?
And it's a great question. Here's the neat thing. Public transportation is a nonpartisan issue. There are no Republican railways or Democratic and transit-ways. It's all bipartisan. People of all parties and all stripes ride public transportation and benefit from public transportation if they don't ride. And so it touches all across the nation, all across the 435 different congressional districts in this country. But here's a more telling statistic on this. As we looked at, we're currently in the second year of the 113th Congress. Previous Congress, the 112th, passed very little major national legislation in this country. One of the very few bills that passed, in fact, one of only 2 major funding bills that passed was the Surface Transportation Bill. And when it came out of committee at the Senate EPW committee, chaired by Congresswoman Boxer, it was the first bill to come out of the EPW in the 112th Congress that had a unanimous vote. And they paused and they said, let's take a moment and recognize this is a unanimous vote. First one to come out of 112. And that bill passed. It was a 27-month bill. Normally we do 60-month bills or longer, but we were very excited to have a multi-year bill as one of the very few multi-year bills to come out of that Congress. And it had a funding increase. At a time when we couldn't get a farm bill, as we all know, just went to the president's desk for signature just in the last day, we finally got funding for public transportation because people get it. And when you walk into a congressional office and you say 10.5 billion trips, that's a lot of constituents. But we can bring a national perspective. You all have to come bring that local perspective. And when you think about how powerful it would be if your member of Congress could be as conversant as Mayor Dean is about public transportation, think how powerful that message would be.
Good, thank you. Next question, yes?
Yes, I'm interested a little more about the campaigns and those successful communities for transit funding. now that there's a recipe for success, but what are the similarities that are across those communities that did reach that? What were their campaigns like? How did they market, promote transit to have an effective vote? And were there any lessons learned in the communities that have failed votes?
Okay. The question, Michael, is about the campaigns that have been successful
Yes.
for transit reform that you addressed. Talk a little bit about the ingredients of success in those campaigns. Just give us a little insight into why that phenomenon has happened.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. The reason people are trusting our public transportation systems and supporting these tax elections is several-fold. One, it's a good story. People are getting it. It's not, people don't take public transportation because they love the ride. Okay, they don't get on and go, woo! Go ride the bus, this is great. Okay. They get on because they have to get somewhere. They have to do something. It gives them that transportation option. They understand the value in that. And business leaders, every one of the tax elections that's passed, and I've been a general manager of 2 transit agencies that were successful in passing transit tax elections. Every one of those had the business community behind them. That was the key, because they understood it was important to get people to and from their business, both to do work and to shop and buy and do the things that they do. The other part of it is they were very specific. Here's the 5 things I'm going to do in this community. I'm going to build the AMP. I'm going to have commuter rail go out to Clarksville. I'm going to improve headways from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. I'm going to put in a fare collection system that allows us to use your phone to pay. You put out the 4 or 5 things that are very specific. You tell people when you're going to do that, and you make sure you have a real face. This is the person, the people that are accountable. When you do what you say you're going to do, you're specific about it, they trust you, you build up that credibility. And that's what the big difference. They say, well, how come it works at the local level and it doesn't work as well at the federal level? Because at the local level, you can see and touch that person. When Paul Ballard stands up and says, this is what I'm going to do with this system here in Nashville, you can call on Paul, and Paul's going to be accountable for that. On a national level, you don't have the same accountability. That's why it's a harder sell on the national level. That's why you have to make it personal. So it's about telling the story clearly. It's about being accountable for it. It's about sharing the community and giving them metrics. And you have to put a face on it, and you have to show them the things. People want to see the growth. They want to see, this is my bus shelter going up. This is, the mayor talked about Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're building the first BRT line in all the state of Michigan. And what they've done is they show on their Facebook page the progress of that BRT going up, so people in the community can see it and they say, oh, I see it going. And then what happens when you do that? You have more advocates in the community, because they're talking about it over coffee and dinner and saying, hey, did you see the progress they're making in the BRT line? So it's being able to tell that story and share it, and very, very important. And one last point there, they passed a tax initiative in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a year and a half ago. It passed by 63 votes. And when they did the analysis, they went down to the districts and looked at where did it pass. They passed primarily because they had strong support from millennials. That group embraced transit. They helped tell that story, and they pushed it over the top, and they made a difference because it was very personal to them. They wrote it. So you've got to look all across the spectrum. There's all different groups of people that use public transportation and benefit from it. So it's getting out there and it's telling that story time and time again.
Great question, great response. Another question that anybody has? Yes?
From an economic development standpoint, you said that for every dollar invested force is given back into the community. Do you see that in the extension, like to the cities, or is that just into the metro areas? Or do you see that into the development of the Hickoryville, Clarksville, or is that just within the metropolitan area?
Yeah, the question has to do with that every dollar invested, there's $4 in economic development return. And is that return seen across the region, not just in the core area? Is that a fair? Yeah. And do you see that as a regional benefit, or is it focused right on the core area of the corridor itself?
Well, it's a mix. Some of it's going to go into capital, and the capital is going to probably be built outside of your community in some ways. The infrastructure, you're building a new transit shelter, you're building a busway, those dollars are going to go to construction companies and architects and engineers in your community. You buy rolling stock, the rail cars or your buses are going to come from other parts of the country. But as an example, when I was in the private sector as a bus OEM, I built buses as the largest bus manufacturer in North America. We had 3,000 suppliers supply my factory in North Dakota. Although there were only 600 people that lived in that little town in North Dakota, we had a tremendous impact across the nation because I had 3,000 companies supplying that. And so those dollars they're both local and they're national. But that's an important point because as we talk about votes and getting the next surface transportation bill through, let's not forget that our current funding source, our surface transportation bill, MAP 21, expires on September 30th of this year. As we tell that story, we're going to need at least 218 votes to get that passed on the House side. And so we've got to get constituents and elected officials across the nation supporting it, whether they get a direct benefit from that service or not.
I think I have time for one more, yes.
Talking about the funding, is that what you're talking about, the funding running out and not being available? We were looking at trying to get $70 million from the federal government. Is there an end time for that to happen?
Okay, the question has to do with the funding, and for example, the AMP ask is about $70 million, a little over $70 million. Is that funding in jeopardy given the expiration of the transportation bill, or is the funding through the appropriation? Yeah.
I can't speak to specific grant applications. There are over 500 direct recipient grant applicants in the country, and so I don't know about each individual grant, but there are specific programs that fund each of the different pieces. We were talking about the buckets. There's a bucket for capital, and there's new starts and small starts and fixed guideway and high intensity bus, and so there's all these different programs that can be used for specific projects. So I can't speak to if that particular project's funding is in jeopardy, but overall, it's important that we continue to invest. The last transit bill, Safety Lou, expired, and we went for 3 years on continuing resolutions on extensions. We had 10 extensions over 3 years, and it was very disruptive to the market space because we were going 3-4 months at a time with funding. And so it was hard to invest in those long-term projects. So that's why it's important that we have a long-term funding bill so you can build projects and invest long-term to build those big projects. So I didn't answer your question specifically, but I gave you how it fits in the context of the bigger piece.
You're getting good nods, so that was great, Michael. Last chance. I said last question. I guess I should. Yes, I knew you would. Go ahead.
I was curious about APTA's advocacy for intercity rail transportation or intercity bus transportation between major metropolitan areas, maybe, let's say, for example, between Nashville and Atlanta. What opportunities exist, federal funding as well as state shared funding and local funding to advocate for those types of projects?
Okay, the question, Michael, is about intercity bus services. And one part of the question is APTA involved in discussion advocacy for intercity bus services? And rail, intercity bus or rail. For example, Nashville to Atlanta would be one that we would be interested in here. And then just commentary.
No, it's an excellent question. We advocate not just for local transit, but also, like in the terms of rail, we talk about intercity and intracity rail and high-speed rail. We are supportive of the high-speed rail program across the country. We are supportive of the Amtrak program across the country. And as we look at, more and more communities are looking at how can we extend our reach between communities and put in long service commuter rail as well. Commuter bus also falls into the FTA funding program, and it's part of our portfolio. It's an area actually I have a lot of familiarity with, having worked in that program for over 11 years. There's a lot of connectivity going on between communities, and where the federal government, the FTA funds local providers to private sector providers provide that kind of connection. Like they're out of Atlanta, there's a lot of service that is on the intercity bus program, and certainly the FTA funds that, and we are very supportive of that program. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you and visit with you today. I applaud what you're doing. I applaud your work. It is vitally important. Your communities need it. If we're going to be globally competitive, we've got to do these investments. We've got to invest in public transportation, and you're the advocates to go out there and make it happen. I salute you and thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Mayor Dean talked about how in Middle Tennessee we like to work well with each other and respect and honor and be kind to each other. The feeling in this room right now with you is that feeling of respect and kindness and working. So thank you for being a part of what we're doing. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks so much, Alan. Good evening.
Okay, we'll continue right on with the agenda that we have. And again, Michael's comments and that material will be available to you as something to reflect on. And as with Mayor Dean, I think there was some very significant insights into the transit question on a national scale that's obviously very relevant to here in Middle Tennessee. Now, this is the fun part, beyond the food, of course, and the great speakers. But to acknowledge the people and some of the people that make this possible for us is it's a wonderful opportunity. First of all, we have a sponsor for tonight's class, and we work with the community to find sponsors. But Barge Wagner Sumner Cannon Engineering is our sponsor for this class. And I think Will Reed is here representing Barge Wagner Sumner Cannon. And Will, do you want to, and also an alumni. We had a little problem with his conduct, but we got him graduated anyway. No, just kidding. I can say that, honestly, because Will?
Thank you, Ed. As Ed said, I'm with Barge Wagner Sumner Cannon. I know some of you, not all of you. I am a transportation engineer. I manage our transportation program at Barge Wagner. But more importantly, I'm also a graduate of this class. I graduated last year, and that final, don't wait on that thing. That's pretty tough. No, seriously. The great thing about this class is the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee and the Andrews Institute, they do a really great job of equipping you to engage in the conversation about transit in Middle Tennessee. So I applaud you all for being here, and we hope that you enjoy the program and are proud to sponsor it. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. I would also like to introduce a person, if you don't know, you will get to know. He is just an outstanding regional resource, and he does have a bias sometimes toward Wilson County, but we'll let him off the hook on that. But Sam Hatcher is here. Sam, oh, he had to leave. Okay, so I'm earlier. Well, Sam is a senior fellow here at the Andrews Institute and has been involved in regional activities, publishing, and so on for a long time. Many of you know Sam. Michael mentioned the National Association of Realtors. We have had a terrific relationship, the Transit Alliance and the Andrews Institute, with the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors. In fact, the founding grant of money that made this possible for class number one many moons ago now was a grant that the GNAR, Greater Nashville Association of Realtors, facilitated us receiving from the Nashville Association of Realtors. And so it's a great privilege tonight to introduce to you, I think, is Jaron Springer. Jaron's right back here. We have a new leader of GNAR, and Jaron is the new CEO of the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors, and it's a delight to have you here with us.
And Ed's correct. It is new leader's correct. This is my third day on the job, and here I am. But one of the reasons I was excited about taking this position, being a part of GNAR and taking on this role, is because of its outlook on Nashville's future and the innovation in it, and being a founding partner and dedicating funds to a class like this. And that excites me about being a part of an organization that wants to do that for a community that I grew up in and want to continue to live in. And I appreciate that you all are taking your time to be a part of this class and continue the legacy that's been developed over the years that GNAR was a part of at the beginning, and I hope to be a part of. Talking about Michael and his organization, 1882, I thought 1891 for GNAR was an impressive number, but 1882, that's really impressive. But GNAR has been a part of the community here since 1891, which is very impressive as well. And thank you for having me here today. Hagen Stone had to step out because he had some clients to see.
We welcome you. If on days 4, 5, 6, and 7 it gets a little bit crazy and you wonder why you did it, just come on back to one of our sessions and we'll make you feel at home again. It's so interesting. It's common sense, but sometimes we don't think about it. I certainly don't. If there's any person that really understands the dynamics of where people live and how they want to get around, it's a realtor. If you stop and think about it, for many families and many individuals, more individuals now, the decision about where to live has a lot to do. It used to be location, location, location that meant some other things, and it's now about that relationship between where one lives and where one needs to be and how one can make those connections. And having the partnership with GNAR and the tremendous professionals that are in that organization has just been a great benefit to us, and we are hopeful it works in reverse just as well. So welcome and thank you, and we're glad you're here. So now, Nancy Magnuson Durham. Is Nancy gone too? Well, we just went on too long, didn't we? Well, Nancy is the senior vice president here at Lipscomb. She was here for a good part of the discussion or the presentations for strategic initiatives. You'll get a chance to meet Nancy. She provides an important link between the overall commitment of Lipscomb University to our community, to our students, to life in this region, and the work of the Andrews Institute and the Transit Alliance through this academy. So you'll get a chance to meet Nancy later. I just have to do this one, and I want to, and she's back in the back, and she's going to get embarrassed, but I want to introduce Carrie Brunfield. Many of you know Carrie. I know you've corresponded with Carrie. Yeah, see that? Carrie directs our programs at the Transit Alliance. When Carrie came on board, it was so impressive because she doubled our staff. And she's just a terrific person, and you'll get to know her, and she's part of the glue and the fabric that holds together what we do. So I'm delighted to have Carrie doing what she does. She's a good friend, and hope you all get to know her too. She had worked previously with the Greater Nashville, the National Area Chamber of Commerce, and has a lot of experience on how to make connections seamless and productive, and that's very valuable. And then I'm Lydia Lanker. Lydia you know well already. Lydia is the managing director of the Andrews Institute of Civic Leadership here at Lipscomb, and is really a core person to make all of this happen. Some of us had the wonderful opportunity to work with Lydia when she worked for Governor Bredesen in the previous administration, and saw her in a very graceful way do the role of a communications director, a PR, all those things, dealing with press and public and things that happen in the state capitol. And we saw that solid internal guidance system that's Lydia's of respect for people, interested in finding new levels of understanding and truth. And I think it was not an accident that she and Governor Bredesen were connected. But anyway, it just worked out beautifully that Lydia has come to the Andrews Institute and to Lipscomb, and then has been the person directing this as we go forward. So you'll get a chance to really get to know and work with Lydia. And if you ever worry about details, don't worry any longer. Lydia's on guard. Lydia is a great follow-through person, and the connectivity of the emails and the linkages and all of these things that just make this as a productive experience as we get together and do our work going forward is really a tribute to Lydia's leadership. So now moving on from the acknowledgement, I think at this point I get to do one more introduction. This time I will make it an acknowledgement, but I will also make it an introduction. The chairman of the board, the head of the board, he doesn't like official titles, but anyway, the head of the board of the Transit Alliance Middle Tennessee from the very beginning is Charles Bone. Charles is managing senior partner at Bone McAllister Norton. He will be quick to point out he's a resident of Sumner County, and his trip between Sumner County and Davidson County is one of the motives, I think, that got him involved. He was involved in the Denver trip that Mayor Dean talked about. When we got back, and we were hosted by GNAR as a follow-up to that Denver trip. And part of those chamber trips, you have to come back with an action plan. And when the action plan included the Mayor's Caucus in creating a Transit Alliance, Charles stepped up and said, I'm willing to take on the leadership role for the Transit Alliance, and has been at that task ever since. So it's my privilege, Charles, to introduce you to make some comments.
Transit 4 years ago, I said, well, I'll do this for a year, and here we are. But now we've got a situation where Ed and Carrie do all the work, and I just get to show up and say thank you. And that's what I really wanted to do today. This is a undertaking on your part, and I congratulate you for committing to be a part of this. I've been just amazed by the classes that we've had so far, the quality of the people who are involved, the folks from all over the region who come out of these classes with such a knowledge and passion for what we're talking about as far as transit is concerned. And thank you all. What an outstanding class. I know several of you all in know what it is to make a commitment to come to these classes and be a part of this. You couldn't be in a better place. They will take great care of you and will make this a very valuable experience for you. So I encourage you to get to know one another, because there are some fascinating people here, and you may even want one of them to come and play the trumpet for an opening class, because he's headed for 200 this year. 100. I heard 200, but 100 at a time. All right. So Dr. Smart, I'm sure, will be glad to bring his trumpet and be a part of that. But and there are others. I won't talk about you, Reggie, but you know, Reggie does economic development, but he doesn't do it during high traffic volumes between Sumner County and downtown Nashville, because we'd lose some prospects that way. But just want to again say thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. Soak it up. It's really really a fascinating few weeks to be a part of this and get to know each other, because it'll be lifelong friends here. Thank you so much.
An anecdote that relates to Charles that I will mention is after the second class of Transit Citizen Leadership Academy, there was some interest in Hendersonville and Sumner County in having sort of a discussion with the Joint Economic Development Council. Reggie will appreciate this and was involved. Mayor or county executive, he likes to be called, Anthony Holt, convened the session, and the graduates of the academy from Sumner. Did I step on something? Yeah, did I? Okay. All right. Anyway, the graduates of the academy from Sumner County were the main agenda for that gathering out there in the Sumner County Courthouse in Gallatin. And it was very clear at that moment that we were onto something here, because the Joint Economic Development folks were not hearing from people like us. They were hearing from people like all of you about the value of transit, and presented an incredible discussion of how Sumner County's cultural and historical and aesthetic traditions could only be maintained if we develop these better connections through transit. So Charles was very instrumental in making all of that happen, and it was a tribute to his leadership and to the class. So more on that will come a little bit later. Now, tributes. There's always somebody in the background and then the foreground who takes a good idea, thinks about it, reflects on it in terms of a broad perspective, and comes back and helps shape that idea. I think if you think through any enterprise that has been successful, there's one or two or three key people that were the ones that maybe didn't have the initial idea, but once they saw the vision, they took that, molded it, and then we looked at it and said, wow, this is incredible. Well, I'd like to introduce a person that was very much in that role as this whole idea of the Academy was conceived, and was involved in the early discussions with GNAR and with the leadership here at Lipscomb, with Charles and our board at the Transit Alliance, to make this thing happen. And her name, some of you know, is Linda Peak-Shack. Linda is the founding director of the Andrews Institute. So she was there at the beginning, had the cognition, the visualization. I'm using big words, Linda. But anyway, because you taught me to do that. She had that vision of leadership that flowed from Nelson himself and the Andrews family and this, and then saw what it could mean in terms of transit, saw the issue. And then added to that her experience and background as a national leader, including time in the White House, as a national leader in developing leadership capabilities. So it's my privilege to introduce Linda Peak-Shack to you. That great, I'll be quiet. I know, she's sitting, stop. Anyway, I'm delighted to introduce Linda Peak-Shack.
Wow, it is so good to see all of you and to kick off this 5th class of the Citizen Leadership Academy. And thank you to Charles and to Ed for giving us this opportunity. It's been an honor to watch this idea grow and actually come to life over the last 2 years now, I guess. Charles and Ralph Schultz are both members, who's come in the back there, are both members of our leadership council at the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership. And so I want to take a moment. This is where I get to give a little commercial and context to how you got here and why we exist. So what are we at the Andrews Institute? Well, among other things, we are an institute that's dedicated to the idea of collaborative leadership, the idea that we really can bring business and government and nonprofit leaders together to find common ground, to develop common good solutions, and then to make common cause to go make it happen. And it excites me that we're seeing that happen, particularly with this signature program of ours, the Citizen Leadership Academy on Transit. The other reason we exist is to teach and to share what we think is a particular brand of that collaborative leadership, and it's a Nashville and Tennessee brand. It's what the mayor talked about earlier. It's what the governor has talked about in his last 2 State of the States when he said that Tennessee is different. We represent the best of America because we can work together to solve our problems and also to take advantage of opportunities. And so we believe, as the quote, and you'll see it in our offices down the hall, as the quote from Nelson Andrews says, that we can actually prove that we in this city and in this state have a particular brand of collaborative leadership, and our role is to teach it, to document it, and to share it. Now, how do we do that? Well, the best way to say this is that we provide a safe place. We provide a safe place for an individual to develop as a leader. We provide a safe place for communities like Wilson County, who's worked with us, to come together and talk about a vision for that county. And we provide a safe place, if you have an idea for civic change, to come and incubate it with us in one of our several programs. And what does that look like? Well, there are 3 ways we do this. One is our Citizen Leadership Academies, and I'll come back to that in a minute because you are part of that signature program. We do it with individual leadership development that we've done through our Women and Girls Leadership Initiative primarily, and that is through our work with cable. And now, very exciting for us, work with the Women's Final Four to produce a Music City Girls Lead Academy for high school girls leading into the Final Four. And finally, we do it through community leadership, and I'll talk about the academic program in a minute, but community leadership. And the signature program for that now is led by Kathy Cates. You're going to spend a lot of time with her in we are very excited about the inaugural class of Leadership Tennessee. But the thing that made the hair on the back of Nelson's neck stand up, according to him, was the master's degree in civic leadership. And all I would do is ask you, as we work with you, to find out more about it. It's a weekend program for adult students, and we promise them 2 things. They'll develop as a leader, and they will launch community change. And we now have 56 students. They have affected not only Middle Tennessee with their community change projects, but also Knoxville and Huntsville, Alabama. And we're hoping to expand even more on that. So now, the program you're in, what are we doing here? Well, one of the things, and Ed talked about how the idea came back, and we said, how do we do this? Well, we knew you were busy people and you were already leaders. So what could we do? And you'll see from the 7 sessions that we give you the tools to tap into the creative genius, the group genius that's in this room. Because we know that the assets in this room can come up with the solutions we need, can sell that story that our previous speaker was talking about, and can bring about change in Middle Tennessee. So there's a lot of different names for what we teach and what you will be doing here. It's called collective impact, it's called shared value, it's called asset-based community change. But what I call it is very exciting because I can't wait to see what you do in this particular session to add to what the students have done preceding you and to take it one step forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. And just another comment, but it's more than an anecdote. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we stole some things from Denver. Denver had a transit alliance. And they were a part of the presentation to the chamber group that was in Denver that Mayor Hickenlooper led when we all went out there in the discussion. And he said, you need to think about this. So we heard about the Transit Alliance, and I don't want to be critical, but they were very honest with us and said, well, we get a group of people together, we rent a hotel ballroom in the morning on a Saturday, and we kind of talk transit. So we got back, and when we got their material, and they've been very helpful to us, it was very clear, as Linda just said, it was very clear the leadership that we want to involve in the academy. First of all, you're very busy. Time is precious. Secondly, most of you are very used to problem solving and getting in, looking at a problem, understanding information, looking at options, making decisions, and then helping implement those decisions. And so we thought quickly, and these are my words, not Linda's or Lydia's or Kathy's, we thought we need to add some pedagogical discipline to the academy, meaning let's understand what it is that we're going to try to do together. Let's budget our time very effectively, bring the right resources to the sessions, engage with you in an effective way, and then move on to what we're all about in terms of transit in the region. And it's because of the partnership with the Institute here that we've been able to add that, and it was really fun for several of us to go to a conference in Cleveland and do a presentation to the Denver folks, and they were taking notes like crazy, and they went back, and now they're doing that very same thing. And then we heard today even there's interest in setting something on a national scale. So thank you, Linda and Lydia and Kathy and the whole team here for making that part of this equation so successful. All right, there's one thing to do between now and taking a more formal break and getting some food and drink in the back of the room. And by the way, at Lipscomb, of course, you know, when we say drink, just don't think anything else. I mean, some of you, oh, really? It's great soft drinks. No. But we have food and drink. But we'd like to just take a minute and kind of let you go around. You all have the biography or the background information and the pictures, those things that Lydia so very carefully collected from everybody. You've got that background. So we don't need to spend a lot of time going around and talking about yourself. But I think there's an important role to stand up and say who I am and basically who I represent. If you want, you can say whatever you would like about who you represent. You may represent the father or the mother of somebody that needs to ride this. Or I represent who I work for, or whatever else. So I think that I think there's value in doing that. So let's just take a minute. David, we'll start over here with you, and just go right up and down the tables, and then we'll go take a break.
Good evening. My name is David Harris. I currently work as the operations supervisor with Davidson Transit Organization, and I actually found my way to this institute by just general concern as a community leader, just interested in the foundation work of transit. When I came to Nashville 11 years ago from Chicago, and my wife's here, she's a dentist, and we started a practice. So then I found my way right back to transit, which is really my heart. And as I started my tenure with Davidson Transit, I started as a bus operator in 2006. I moved into supervision the early part of 2007, and they asked me, they said, well, you've been a counselor, you've done this, you've done that. How does driving a bus fit into the equation? I said, well, it actually doesn't fit into the equation. It's actually an in-road position. I can see the groundwork that's being laid for the organization as Davidson Transit as a whole, and I wanted to be a part of that ground floor. And just since 2006, I saw dramatic growth in that fine organization. Thank you.
I think I can follow that. I'm Mike Hathaway. I'm an architect by profession, work for a developer down in Franklin, Tennessee. But why I'm here really more is because I'm a planning commissioner, chairman of the planning commission in Franklin, and interested in seeing how the transit discussion connects regionally with our community. So I look forward to learning more.
Hello, I'm Steve Smart. I work at Vanderbilt University. I'm a layperson when it comes to transit matters. I'm a participant when it comes to transit. Quick background, I'm from this area originally. Moved away for about 10 years, mostly in the 70s. Yes, I'm that old. And I lived for 6 years in Atlanta. And the housing that I could afford for a young family was about 30 miles away from where I work in the center of the city. And I rode the bus for 6 years, made some of the best friendships and networks and what have you. The bus fare was 15 cents. I could get a free transfer and ride to the airport for 15 cents in Atlanta, from 30 miles on the north to whatever on the south. Second thing to tell you is that I now live, having moved back to Nashville some 30 years ago. I have recently moved, our family, my wife and I live on Old Hickory Lake, so I'm a new resident of Wilson County. And I'm delighted to tell you that the Music City Star is one of the most wonderful things. I would have never predicted or bet that in my lifetime I could get on a train on the east side of town and ride to downtown, hop on a free bus that's all integrated and get to Vanderbilt. It works like a charm. I wish I could do it every day. I can't because of other schedules and other commitments at times, but I do it every chance I get. And I'm also grateful for meeting this gentleman, coincidentally, who opened the door and the opportunity for me to be here with you tonight. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
We know we've got music if we need it.
Yes.
204. I'm Diane Thorne. I'm with the TMA Group, Franklin Transit Authority of Franklin, Tennessee. I have been in transportation, happy to tell you how many years. I started out with the Tennessee Road Builders Association. So I have been on the road building side. I've been on the local side. I was mayor for Sales Infrastructure Advisor for the city of Nashville while he was mayor. I have been assistant commissioner of transportation for the state of Tennessee. So I worked on the local, state, worked some on the federal side in Washington to get some of, to tell you how long I've been around, I worked on the first iced-tea bill that was passed, and that was a long time ago. So I've been in transportation a long time, and the one thing that I know is I still have a lot to learn. So I'm looking forward to this academy.
My name is Jay Evans. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Brentwood. I've only been in Middle Tennessee for a year, and so I'm still kind of learning the transportation network and know very little about transit in the area. Don't know any of the stakeholders, so it's an opportunity for me to learn and get plugged in, and I'm looking forward to the whole experience.
My name is Ann Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of the Cheatham County Chamber of Commerce. So from a professional standpoint, this is a wonderful opportunity for me. For those of you who don't know, Cheatham County is right in between Nashville and Clarksville, so we're very interested in rail. We also have 24 that goes up one side, we've got 40 coming across the bottom, and then Highway 12 that goes directly from Nashville to Ashland City. So professionally, this is perfect. Personally, I want to thank Charles Bone. I'll make a little plug for Cumberland Region tomorrow. I'm on the CRT board. It's a great organization if you're not familiar with it. Reg is on there too. That works from a regional perspective. And I think you're either on there or you're really connected. But from a regional perspective to make sure that we're planning appropriately. And Charles mentioned it in a meeting and said, you should look into that. And I thought, well, I'm going to look into it, and here I am. So I'm very happy to be here and look forward to this.
Great. Over here, hi, my name is Bryce Rochelle. I'm from Wilson County. I'm in Lebanon at Rochelle McCullough Olds. That's not my firm. I can't take credit for it. It's my father's firm. He's Bob Rochelle, started it many, many years ago. But I just got started practicing, and one of the areas that I'm interested in is local government and economic development. It's kind of led me to this group, two areas that I take a lot of interest in. So what I don't have in experience, I hope that I can make up for in interest and enthusiasm. Happy to be here. Great.
I'm Ken Douglas. I'm from Wilson County. I'm Bryce here. I looked at everybody's bio, and I decided that I was the only one here that didn't have a degree in anything. I am interested in public transit, and I figure I've got two choices. I can be the part of the problem, or I can be part of the solution. I choose to be part of the solution.
I'm Kelly Dannenfelser. I'm the principal planner with the City of Franklin. And I've served on the TMA board for some years and also the RTA board. And so as a planner, I'm really interested in the nexus between land use and transportation and growing in an orderly, planned way, looking at infrastructure and
state of Tennessee and economic development. I'm Reggie Mudd. I'm on the Cumberland Region Navarro Board, and Ed was our first executive director, so really set the course. And we've been heavily involved and had a great belief about that. So, been interested in this, and being in economic development, I feel like it's a great key to our future. Ralph's been very supportive of this, and if we don't do something about it, it's really going to hurt us trying to do economic development in 20 years. We keep saying we don't want to be under the land, and we really don't. So I think this is one of those keys to doing something about that. We have a great city, and we just want to make it better. Had dinner with some guys last night who were looking at moving to Nashville, and they were asking what are some of the things that Nashville's not good about, and had to mention mass transit, but I think we're doing something about that. I hope this group is going to be a leader in that. So thank you for being here.
I'm Annie Passano. I work at the Southern Environmental Law Center. We're a regional organization. Among the things that we do is advocating for better and more options in terms of transportation and transit. I'd say my interest began in high school. We did not have a school bus, but I rode Hillsborough 7 downtown and got very familiar with that system and hope you learn a lot more here.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bill McCord. I'm the new city planner in Gallatin. I came from Florida. I've been in Florida for in Georgia a little bit, and for Florida for the last 27 years. I grew up in Middle Tennessee, Tullahoma. Went to UT, go Vols. I'm glad to be back, although it's awful cold. I'm not used to it, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robbie Hayes. I work for ICA Engineering in Brentwood, Tennessee. Live in Brentwood, Tennessee. Been in the Nashville area since about 2008. From the Atlanta area, so really in the suburban area, and saw, what happens when you are reactionary about transit and the effects that it can have on communities. I've served as a local planner, regional planner, transportation planner, so just this is real big interest to me, and really excited to be in this class with you all and see what we can all do in our respective communities for the future of the Nashville region. So thank you.
Ryan Trotter, also with ICA Engineering. I'm the regional manager here in responsible charge of Tennessee operations. Live in Clarksville and actually commute from Clarksville to Brentwood every day to our office, so I'm very interested in Clarksville to speed that up a little bit. That would be really helpful. But very excited to be here and looking forward to participating in the group.
Hi, I'm Matt Lawson. My day job is that I sell air. I work for Comcast Spotlight, so I sell TV commercials. But what's kind of led me here is that about a year and a half ago, with help of the Hendersonville Area Chamber of Commerce, we founded the Hendersonville Young Professionals. And since that time, we've grown by almost 350 members in a year and a half. So there's a lot of economic impact to that, to having young professionals start their families in a community like Hendersonville. But transit is always a big deterrent, and so that's one of the issues that is on my heart, and I really want to focus on that so that we can get more young professionals.
I'm Corey Langford. I too from Hendersonville, Sutter County, and was Matt on the Young Professionals Council, and enjoyed the impact that's been in our community thus far. We work with a restaurant management company. It's a family business. We own the Black Eyed Pea restaurant chain, and we're also Denny's franchisees. We're working with one in Nashville, so we're in the process of that process. So middle of that process. I want to represent the business perspective as we go go forward in this process. The business community is affected by the transit. In our restaurants, can people get to work? Where do our customers come from? Where's their point of distribution? How do you access it? And other businesses as well. So as we go through this class, I look forward to kind of representing the business mindset of how does it really impact us on a local and global scale. So I'm excited to get to meet you all. Good to see you all. Great to see you.
My name is Jay Everett. I'm a downtown Nashville resident.
I'm actually a graduate of Lipscomb University. I graduated this past fall with a degree from the Institute for Sustainable Practice and the Business School. I'm also a board member of Transit Now Nashville. It's a grassroots nonprofit. We've been around for about 5 years here in Nashville. Really simple. We try and get people to use the transit that we have and also advocate for better, smarter investments in mass transit and work with that a lot. And Gary at the Transit Alliance. They've been great partners. And in my day job, I'm a certified planner and landscape architect with Lowson Associates here in town. And I've had the great privilege to work on the first transit-oriented development at Hamilton Springs out in Lebanon, and also first transit-ready development, Greensboro North and Gallatin. So I'm really passionate about transit, really excited about how far we've come and how far we have to go. So glad to be
My name is, I just ruined your supper. My name is Bill Hartnell from Clarksville, Tennessee. There's 3 things I want to share with you. I have an identical twin brother who has the exact same job for the county mayor as I have for the city mayor. But the big thing is that my twin brother and I like to ride bicycles, and we always ride near Ed because his legs are as skinny as ours. So the spandex is not as rough, and the comparison is not as difficult. I think the highlight of this is always anytime you can be with Ed Cole. Whether it's on a bicycle or whether it's at a meeting or whatever, it's always a blessing. 2, Clarksville has had a mass transit system forever. My dad had a local funeral home but volunteered as the very first treasurer. I'll never forget the Sunday afternoon before the 3 buses were to start running on Monday morning in charge. The first bus out of the little transfer station popped a clutch, threw an 80-something-year-old lady down, broke her hip, and that almost ended the transit system before it ever got a nickel on it. But it continued to stay. The last thing is that I've raised 7th generation Clarksvillians with my twin daughters over the last few years. I love Clarksville and I love Middle Tennessee. I live without Memphis or Knoxville because I don't really have I'm an Austin P. Let's go P. And you're going to need a break in just a few minutes. But I will tell you, I'm really, if you're not learning, you might as well be dead. That's the bottom line. And I'm tickled at Ed and I's senior age, we're still willing to learn. And I'm really looking forward to this experience. And it's nice to be with everybody, and I look forward to everybody being friends before this.
That is great.
I'm Brandon Shaw, and Bill, I'm also a twin brother too, and I grew up living in Georgia, and we didn't have any mass transit there. It was just a little town, so when I come to Tennessee, I was like, well, that's just normal. We don't have any mass transit there either. Then I went to D.C. not too long ago with the LDS department here, and I rode the metro there. I come back to Tennessee, I'm like, why in the world do we not have mass transit? So I'm actually a student here. I'm a senior in my last semester of the Law, Justice, and Society program, which if you don't know about that, earlier told me that I'm one of the first to be a student involved in this DCLA. So I'm very excited to be here. But the LJS department focuses on social change in the society that you're in the community. That's something I'm really passionate about. And I'm still a rookie at this whole social thing. I'm still a layperson like you, Steve, right? I'm more of a participant, like Michael was saying. I'm a millennial. I'm involved in pure participation mode. But I'm really excited about it. I'm actually doing a senior project. My senior thesis is focusing on national public transit. So I'm really excited about the class. I'm excited with all you guys.
I'm Pete Wooten. I'm with Avenue Bank, and I've been here in Nashville since '96. So doing the math on that, I guess it's about 20 years. Stephen, like you, I'm a layperson when it comes to transit, and but I'm struck by all the change here in Nashville, in Middle Tennessee. So much positive momentum we've got in the city, and when I think I've traveled a little bit, when I think about other great cities in the world, they've all got great transportation systems. So if you go as a visitor, you can hop on transit very easily. I really want that for Nashville. I think we're headed in that direction, and so I'm looking toward that. And where I live, I kind of live along the West End corridor in an area that there's a lot of red signs. I had a green sign in my yard, and it disappeared. So we've got to make signs that don't disappear. But I'm interested in really learning the facts behind transit, so I can have a good, meaningful conversation about all the positive benefits that will come to our city,
estate firms here in the Middle Tennessee area with offices in Nashville, Cool Spring, and Murfreesboro. I was fortunate to be the president of the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors in 2009 and had the opportunity to go to Denver with Ed and many other people with the chamber. We got to learn, we had several initiatives we were going for, one being a new convention center, which I'm happy to say is now a fruition, and it's beautiful, and one of the other things was mass transit, and learning about how, I think it was even brought up that the realtors are connected to, we know where people work, and we know where the people live, and we also know what they want, because we're dealing with them every day, and dealing with all the facets of what they're looking for in their life. And I'm sure that we'll be reporting back to GNAR when I attend some of the board meetings and stuff on what we're doing, and any way our association can help further mass transit in the Middle Tennessee area. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm Phil Clover. I own Clover Engineering in Springfield. Here representing Robertson County. I'm a transplant from San Antonio back in 1989, and spent about 25 or 30 years in the highway and heavy construction industry. I was involved with the road builders for a while, some time back. I worked for Rogers Group for a while, and now I have my own engineering company. Became highly involved in the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Board here in Robertson County a short time ago. And I decided that there was a lot of things that we needed to do, a lot of catching up on. We needed to become more involved in Middle Tennessee. And also discovered that when you express your opinion, you also become a person that is on the hot seat, and you become a person that gets to donate your time, and that's what I'm doing.
I'm Jamie Camp. I am research faculty in civil and environmental engineering at Vanderbilt, so I don't do a lot of true engineering or traditional engineering, but instead I'm researching tomorrow's problems. A lot of the work I'm focused on is infrastructure systems, specifically transportation infrastructure systems, and the status of those systems and future projections with climate change, extreme weather events, and how those systems will hold up. One of the missing pieces of the equation is transit, because I don't know if you're aware, ASE released the infrastructure report card in 2013. I was on the committee, the national committee for that, and my background is actually environmental engineering, so I was on the water committee, not the transportation or the water group. But I'm also serving on the Tennessee Freight Advisory Committee, and the conversation is constantly congestion, and our roadways are old, they're failing. You know, how do we fix these problems? And I think mass transit is one way to help relieve that congestion and the wear and tear on those infrastructure systems, interstates that are serving our communities and helping get people in now. So I've got a little bit of a different perspective. I travel to a lot of conferences and other cities, and I love using mass transit there. And I'll have to say, it's shameful that I rode Metro's mass transit just a handful of times, because it's just not convenient and as friendly as I think it should be. So that's my opinion.
Just a footnote, Janie's husband also took this.
Oh, yes.
So it's all the family with the campus.
I'm Charlie Smith. I've recently joined Barnes Wagner with Will here, and I'm sorry to say I don't get to participate in the class, but yeah. I've spent most of the last half of my career doing economic development projects all over the country, working in many different communities, working with freight, working with ports and harbors and DOTs and all kinds of different entities, and some very large clients, some large communities, some very small. But Nashville has always been a center of interest for me, because there's so many good things that happen here. You all are well aware that a missing piece, particularly critical, is to have a great transit system. I'm glad to see that you guys are here focused on that. But in my experience doing economic development, critical piece, got to solve that problem.
I don't know how you feel, but it's overwhelming when you think of the background and the interest and the perspectives that are present in this room right now. It's amazing. And the transit truly is a transformative thing to affect a broad range of our community. Then we are the people we've been waiting for to talk about it, because we're right here together. Now, one of the things we do very clearly is to really try to stay on schedule so you can plan on going home on time. We're a little behind, so what we're going to do, and we built this little kind of thing in, we're going to take a break. Bill, you know where the restroom is? Yeah. Okay. We'll take a break and grab some food and drink and come back to your place. And Ralph is here, and as soon as you kind of done your little thing and you're back with your food at your place, we'll go ahead and have Ralph talk with us. Okay? It's my privilege to introduce to you. Yeah, I'm gonna. I want to. Many of you know Ralph Schultz. If you don't know Ralph Schultz, you're about to know Ralph Schultz. Ralph is the CEO, president of the National Area Chamber of Commerce, and a champion.
Thanks, Ed. I love working with Ed. I have always said to him that I hope when I get to be his age, I have as much energy as he does. And just last week, I had a woman come up to me and say, I hope I have as much energy at your age as you have. So, Ed, we share that. We share that distinction. Look, I'm going to be quick. I'm going to hit bullets. If you want to know more, we're always available at the Chamber. Transit's a big issue for us, and it's very fundamental to economic development, and I'm going to hit those points very, very, very quickly. First of all, let me just say to you that economies, the global economy is a marketplace, but fulfilling that global economy, economies are regional. There is no national economy. There is an aggregation of 100 economies across the United States that create that national economy. In the state of Tennessee, there are 7 of those metropolitan areas that are among the 100 economies that are regional economies that fuel the national economy. This area, Nashville, the 14 counties of the Nashville area represent over 32% of the state's GDP. Over 32% of the state's GDP is right here. I'm just going to say to you that this entire state depends on an upward trajectory of the Middle Tennessee economy. Now, if you go back in history, in the 1860s, that's really the beginning of the modern era of Middle Tennessee's economy. Because what happened was the Feds, also known as the Union Army, created a distribution mechanism. They capitally invested in creating a distribution mechanism in Nashville and used that to support what they then called the Western Theater, the war in the southern states. After the war, they abandoned that capital development, and Irish American immigrants, for the most part, who were building railroads on the East Coast, came across to Nashville, took it over, and we became then a civilian distribution center. That led to publishing, that led to music, that led to financial center, and it led to the DNA of entrepreneurship and independence that exists here in this country. That was in 1860. In 1960, 3 interstates converged on Nashville, Tennessee. That was a huge advantage in terms of goods and people movement. The 1860s, it's about the railroads and it's about the river. In the 1960s, it's about the interstate. Now we are faced, as we look forward in this economy, we are faced with the need to move people. Human capital is the driver of the economy. It used to be, when I graduated from the University of Tennessee, where was that gold go on? Okay, there you are. When I graduated from the University of Tennessee in 1974, you found a job and you moved to where the job was. That's not the way things work anymore. People are deciding where they want to live, and they're getting jobs when they get there. What's happening now in jobs creation, and Reggie knows this because we work together on economic development all the time, is that it is no longer the jobs that draw people, it's the people that draw jobs. So when you see Middle Tennessee behaving as it is in the current economy, it is because and in-migration of workforce has been attracted here because of quality of life, and that quality of life and that workforce causes people to want to locate their jobs here. Businesses that are already based here expand here. Businesses that don't exist here come here because that workforce is growing as fast as the jobs. At the Nashville Chamber, we keep our eye on three things. They all affect quality of life, and transit is central to maintaining that quality of life. One of the things we focus on is called minding the spread. The cost of living in Nashville, Tennessee, in this region, is 88% of the national average. The per capita income in this region is 115% of the national average. That means if you live in this region, you have a 27% disposable income advantage over anywhere else in the United States, on average. Compare it to New York, compare it to LA, compare it to Chicago, and you're really talking about a major financial and economic value to living in this area. Part of that cost of living, however, and that cost of living and that per capita income draws people here, which, remember, draws jobs to the area. Part of that cost of living equation is transit. When we look at the in-migration patterns to this region, we see our greatest in-migration coming from not Atlanta. We actually still lose more people to Atlanta than we gain. We find them coming from LA, Chicago, and New York. They come here from LA, Chicago, and New York, places that they have had transit, and they automatically find that they've got a transportation penalty they have to pay. Because if they have one car, they now need two. Or if they had no car, they now need one. And it costs an average of $12,000 a year. Average. That's it, not getting a Mercedes. It costs an average of $12,000 a year to operate a vehicle. Okay? $12,000 a year. Now, I am really hitting the headlines on this conversation. But think about it for a second. If our economy, if our job growth depends on in-migration because our native population does not have the size or the population growth rate to fuel the job growth that's happening in Middle Tennessee right now. Last year we were #1 in the country. This year we're neck and neck again with Tampa and Houston to be #1 for job growth in the United States. If we don't have the native population, we depend on in-migration. When those in-migrants are making their decision, they're making a decision that's beneficial to their household economy. They look at schools and they look at transit and they say, I'm going to have to make that up out of that 27% of disposable income. I'm going to have to buy a car I didn't have to buy, and I'm going to have to perhaps send my kids to private schools depending on where they live instead of public schools. That really shrinks that economic advantage. Additionally, when you look at the population trends and you look at the boomer generation that's moving into retirement, you see a smaller group of people to fill those jobs, a smaller labor force coming up. We need to capture every one of the 18 to 35 demographic that we can capture right now. And did you know that in the 18 to 35 demographic across the United States, 34% of that group doesn't have a driver's license. 34% of the 18 to 35 doesn't have a driver's license. People say to me all the time, why do we care? Everybody I know in Nashville has a driver's license. We care because that in-migrating group that's going to fill those jobs, that's going to create the prosperity, keep the cost of living low and the per capita income high, which fuels consumer activity, which creates more jobs. You know the cycle. Those people are looking for an alternative other than owning a car. You can talk about seniors, and I'm one of them, nearly. I guess I'm one of them. I get a discount at movie theaters now. But you can talk about really young people. You can talk about people who aren't capable of driving and need transit as that option. You can talk about all of those things. But what exists now that didn't exist then is this massive people that want to come here and propel our economy toward prosperity, and they don't want to own a vehicle. Those of you in the real estate business already know this. Young people today are not buying acreage and square footage. They are buying amenities and proximity. Now, if you're part of this 14-county area, you know the concentration of amenities that exist in the middle of the region in Davidson County. Everything from an airport to sports teams. If those people are going to buy into the perimeter of this region, they're going to need some form of transit and transportation. If they're going to be in the center of the region, they're going to want to gain access. Okay, we got 1 minute left and 15 minutes worth of stuff. They're going to want to have access to those other areas of the region. I'm going to finish with this point because I think it's possible that you don't know the gravity of the situation. Everybody talks about the debate of the AMP as a localized debate. It's about West End, a few square blocks of West End. Everybody in this room, every county in this region should care about the AMP, because the AMP is the strategic spine that's going to connect the whole region together. There are legislators in the state legislature that say it's a local thing, not a state thing. Let me just remind everybody here that 32% of the GDP fuels an awful lot of tax base. Let me also remind everybody that when there's a concentration of amenities in the center of a region and attributes throughout the region that people want to connect to, if you don't have a transit system, you're going to see the economy go down, you're going to see individuals not coming here, you're going to start to see jobs drop, and you begin that slow spiral that it took 50 years for Detroit and Cleveland to undergo. So, let me just say this clearly with less than a minute to go. Every single person in this room has a stake in the total transit design. And if we're going to maintain that 88% and that 115% advantage for my kids and my grandkids and you and the people that you know, we're going to have transit that moves people, because human capital is the key to the prosperity, and growth is key to the prosperity in the future. So next fall, when we ask for your help with the state legislature to make sure they understand this is not a local issue, this is also a state issue, then I hope you'll respond to that call and contact the people you know to help influence that decision. Thanks.
Well, again, these comments will be available. What Ralph just said, there's a whole lot in there. I hope everybody can see how significant those comments were. I encourage you to go back and take a look at them. We're also going to make available to you the vital signs document that the Chamber has put out for the first time ever, kind of a regional benchmark. We'll make that available and give some background and help on some of the things Ralph was talking about. It's now my privilege to introduce another great part of the team here at the Andrews Institute, Kathy Kate, who is going to be the kind of leader, whipcracker. Anyway, Kathy's going to be helping us as we work together toward our projects and our interactions that we have as we get to that point. So Kathy, you're on.
Thank you. All right, two things I know. My entire, almost my entire professional life has been spent working with college students and community leaders, and neither of those groups are ever on time. But I also know they like to be on time and like to be let out when we say we're going to let them out. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly, and then we've got a lot of information to share with you about the next session in 2 weeks. So I'm just going to give you the down low, quick and dirty on the community presentations that will be done on April the 28th. I'm sorry, April the 30th, which is our last class. You should have been receiving on the tables here a list of groups that you have been put in, and those are to represent the diversity of the communities that you represent. So you're not necessarily with people that you know, but this will give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about other communities in our region, and what the issues are in those communities. So those are the groups that you're going to be presenting with on April the 30th. Will said it back from Barge Wagner said earlier, don't wait till the last minute to do this work, and that is probably the best piece of advice you're going to get tonight. You're going to have, over the next 7 sessions, the next 14 weeks, assignments that build on each other. So every week you'll get a new assignment, and the following week you'll work on that a little bit and build on what you've learned over the course of our time together. At the end of our time together, you'll have enough information and enough resources to put together a presentation on transit issues in our region. And we're going to explain a little bit more about that and what that looks like, so don't panic. Lydia, over the next couple of weeks, will also send you a link and a password to presentations that have been done previously, so you'll have an idea of what those look like. What we discovered in TCLA 4 was that putting you in these regional groups rather than a specific community group worked really well, because you did get those, you could share those resources. So we're going to keep with that format, I think, and do that. So instead of us breaking into small groups tonight, since we're running out of time, we are going to give you the assignment, and when we come back in 2 weeks on February 19th, we'll have some opportunities to actually talk about what we're going to do. So what I need you to do over the next couple of weeks is go back out into your specific community and think about and look at what the transit issues are in your community specifically. Like I said, you're going to come back and share those with your small groups and then with the larger group. And then we're going to look at what those perceptions are. Are they, are those issues and opportunities reality-based, or are they perception-based? So kind of get a feel for what's going on out there. Most of you know already specifically what's happening, but if you need to go do a little research, market research, feel free to ask questions and do that. But just kind of scan the landscape while you're out there over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll come back on February 19th and share that. And you all are going to talk a little bit more about, we've got some special stuff going on next time, so I'm going to let Ed do that.
All right, thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
Just an add, Kathy's challenge about thinking about issues and how that relates to your community or your world or neighborhood or whatever. We've heard a couple of things tonight. We've heard facts about the issue, about transit, about demographic growth, about economic impacts. That's one of the areas that Kathy is challenging us to think about. Are those relevant concerns where you are, the people that you work with, relate to? The other piece that we've heard about tonight are the perceptions and the ways in which we people look at those issues. That we are, if we see the problems exist, then how do we mobilize support? The great question to Michael about these campaigns, why are so many of them passing? Those have to do with human response to the problems that people perceive. So what Kathy has laid out is kind of think of that whole realm of things, from actual problems that transit is related to that we've heard about, all the way over to, okay, what can we do about that, or what can we help others to do about that as we go forward. So it's really a broad net that we're casting for this process. And one of the neatest things will be that last session when the groups come back together and you kind of see how your net, what it pulled up, and how it really described the things that you found to be important in the communities that you and your group represented. So now we'll have fun talking about next.
Stay here with me.
Oh,
You can stay.
okay.
He's the MC. It gets very fast at the end, but we really are, really strong about getting in on time. Look at your Agenda 2 session page. I am going to re-email this to everybody, but this is important because this isn't really, you'll bring your binder. We're going to go on a little field trip for Class 2, and this is also a first. Not only do we have a student member of the class, we're going to take you out on a trip. We hope it's not inconvenient for you, but we thought it'd be really cool to get out on the Music City Star and ride transit as part of a transit academy. So that's why we gave you 2 tickets. You need one to get down and one to get back. We will be more specific in the email about the stations that are available. You're going to have to go up to the other side, like Wilson County side or Donaldson, to get the Music City Star, and then you'll need that other ticket to get back. So your Agenda 2 maps out the crazy schedule we put together for that night. You'll get the, you'll board from 4:10, I'm sorry, let me back it up. Boarding times range from 3:20 to 3:55. Then we're going to get the Music City Star arriving at Riverfront Station. We're going to get on the Music City Circuit bound for the Music City Central not to be confused with the Music City Center. Then we're going to do an hour's worth of class at the Music City Central, get you back on the circuit, get you back on the Star. It's going to happen. It's going to feel like whiplash in some ways, but we think it's going to be really worth it. So hopefully getting this notice for 2 weeks, you can kind of figure out and try to make it work. When I email everybody this agenda with some more detail about the stations, please let me know if you can't make it. But those tickets are essential because you'll be able to ride for free.
You know, I think we could get Steve to be playing the trumpet at each station. So if you get there and you hear the trumpet, you know, never mind.
He's stuck on the trumpet, which is good.
That'll be 100 more.
Ed, keep me focused here now, Ed, keep me focused. Anything else? Let me think. The tickets?
No, the basic idea, I hope it's real clear. You'll drive to, hopefully Lebanon, so to get the most experience, but you'll leave your car at the station that you arrive, and then from there on, it's all on the Music City Star, the transfer downtown, on the circuit, and then we'll meet at Music City Central, and then we'll come back the same way. So you'll return then to your car where it was left.
Right. So you've got the tools to get there. We'll give you more information in detail. And again, when I email everybody, just let me know if you absolutely cannot do this. But we hope you can. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And we're not going to do class on the train. We're just going to do it to experience it and get to know each other a little better. And then we'll go to the Music City Central to talk with Paul Ballard, who heads up the RTA and the MTA. Kathy's going to do more with you, so it's important what she told you to be prepared to do her discussion. She got a little cut off from tonight's hugely long agenda, but we appreciate everything. So we hope your first night has been a good one. We're so excited to have you. I always feel like the school marm when you first get here. I've seen your pictures, I've talked to a few of you, I've mostly emailed with you. It just makes me really feel good. So I hope it's a great experience for you all. I'm here for you as the resource. I direct this class. He's the expert, Carrie's the expert on transit, but I'm here to do everything else for you to make it a great, easy experience. So take advantage of us for you, okay? Safe travels.
All right.